Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at Beyond the Rift, the Perdition's Mouth adventure card game, which is playable solo or cooperative for up to 5 players. And disclaimer that I got a review copy of this one. I enjoy a lot of adventure card games in general, Arkham Horror the card game being my favorite of all time. How does this one stand up? Let's find out and get to the list. So first, my number 5 point is unfortunately a con for my taste, and that's kind of looking at the production and polish of the game. For the cards themselves, it's very minimal art. The majority of them are just text and icons. Now, the UI and the text generally works okay, but it's not really inspiring. And then in the main adventure book you're using most of the time, there's also not really any art. The translation is mostly good, but there are little grammatical errors. And sometimes for the more complicated scenarios, like the playthrough I did a week or two ago, it's not always as clear how all the rules work. Now, a lot of that, if you just read carefully, you'll understand, and then the designer is pretty active on Board Game Geek. But I'm right back to a full pro for my taste for number 4, which is the enemies and how they activate and how you have to manage them. So each scenario will have different enemies based on kind of the theme, whether you're fighting orcs or cultists or demons. And they have different stats, different abilities, the kind of stuff you would expect. But a really cool thing, and this kind of goes with the scenario design I'll discuss later, they each activate in different ways that are semi-predictable, which gives you a lot of strategic control as you confront them. And while the game works great in true solo, the enemies are really interesting in multiplayer play because, as you might expect, you can have some characters like pull or tank for others. But my number 3 point is back to a mix for my taste, and I think this one is going to vary a lot based on your preferences, and that's the characters and how they evolve across the campaign. So first of all, very much on the positive side are the characters themselves. They have completely unique decks, they have different special abilities, and they feel just very different in the way you would kind of expect their roles to make them feel. But as you progress through the different little mini campaigns, which is how the game is pretty much set up, a set of 3 missions that connect together, the only way you really level up is that you get items that replace cards in your deck. And for some people, it's going to be exciting because you do get better cards and your deck kind of evolves in a way, but it's still a very small portion of the cards in your deck. For others, you're going to want more. You're going to want your actual abilities to change. Then for my number 2, which is looking at the scenarios and campaigns, this for my taste is a full pro, but it is very much for my taste. So as I mentioned, the game is sort of set up as a series of 3 scenarios linked together in kind of mini campaigns. Now, the entire thing is basically an ongoing campaign, but the stories only slightly connect to each other. There is a big bad that's behind everything, but besides that, they're kind of their own little sub-stories, and the only campaign element that continues on are the item upgrades that I already mentioned. So it would totally be viable to jump in and just play these as one-off scenarios or 2 or 3 scenario kind of mini campaigns connecting together. And I love that. I love that flexibility of playing for a little bit or a lot, not being locked in for, weeks and weeks with the same game group. You can trade characters in and out. You can try a different character. But then the coolest thing are the scenarios themselves. They're so different. They have defense scenarios, rescue scenarios, exploration scenarios, attack scenarios, stealth scenarios. I love the variety and experimentation they've done with the system to change up the game scenario to scenario. And again, I personally really like the campaign structure. But the number 1 point for me, a total pro for my taste, best thing about the game without a doubt, the thing that makes this one of the best card adventure games I've played, is the card play. I love, as I already said, the variety in the cards that each character has. And these are multi-use cards. You can use them to pay for other cards. Almost every card has at least 2 different things you can do with it. Where it really sings and the card play really shines is in multiplayer or two-handed. It's really not that hard a game to two-hand, because you can do so much to help each other out. So many of your cards will have 2 reigns, so you can boost each other, you can aid each other. And while not everyone is going to love the response deck, which again is a little bit like the Arkham Horror drawing from a bag mechanic, where you're drawing cards to modify your attacks and defenses, the deck is a very deterministic. It's very heavily weighted toward the +1, 2, 3 middle values. There's no auto fail or auto succeed in here. You can see the cards that have come out. It's not like Arkham Horror where the tokens get returned to the chaos bag. So I personally find this very mitigatable, very predictable. If you really want to succeed at something, you can make your value so high that you can't possibly fail. I think it works well as a randomizer. So overall, you might want to avoid Beyond the Rift if little errors in gameplay and stuff really annoy you, or if you don't like having to go to BGG sometimes to look things up. You also might want to avoid this one if your preference in campaign play is constant growth and leveling up of your characters. It's kind of minimal here. But on the other hand, I'd recommend checking this out if you like adventure card games, Warhammer Quest, Heroes of Terranoth, Arkham Horror, Adventuria. I think this one is one of the best. If you like tactical card play and combos, if you like great cooperation between characters, if you like a lot of variety in scenarios, I think this one has all of that in droves. And if you want to see the game in action and decide for yourself, I had a recent playthrough of a more complicated scenario, or you can go back to our preview video and see a simpler combat-focused scenario in action. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.